What's going on, San Antonio Spurs fans? We're back with another film study, and today we're going to take a look at some Lonnie Walker footage from the Brooklyn Nets game, which was one of his best outings of the season. The third-year two-guard had 19 points, 4 assists, and a pair of blocks, but mixed in a fair amount of mistakes with the good, so let's just hop into the tape. Really nice two-way sequence from Lonnie Walker here on one of the opening defensive possessions of the game. Does a good job of keeping his head on a swivel and being aware of what's going on around him, and rotates over and uses every inch of that 6'10" wingspan to block Bruce Brown, and then he finds DeJounte Murray in transition here with a beautiful dump-off pass, and DeJounte makes a tough finish, but watch Lonnie's eyes here as he looks off the defense, which opens up the pass. Just really nice stuff from the third-year swingman. On this play, I went ahead and slowed things down so you can see how DeJounte Murray is pointing in transition, hey, somebody has to pick up Joe Harris, and that somebody should have been Lonnie Walker, but instead Harris drains the triple, and you can't leave a 51% three-point shooter wide open like that and expect to win. This time down, Lonnie does something he hasn't done much of this season and embraces contact, driving right into DeAndre's chest, but he doesn't finish, and that's an area he struggled mightily in this season, but he recovers and knocks down this mid-range J, and this kind of was a turning point for him where he started building a little bit of confidence in this game. Here, Lonnie does an excellent job of initially suffocating Joe Harris's airspace so he can't get a shot off, but after the switch, we'll go ahead and pause. The way Lonnie is positioned is going to allow Harden to drive to the left, which is exactly what he wants to do as a left-hand dominant player, and everything that occurs after this is a direct result of the initial mistake, and we'll unpause, watch Harden drive, and pause one more time. There are 5 Spurs who are staring down Harden and 3 who have converged upon him, and unpause, Bruce Brown gets this easy layup at the rim, and it's a direct result of that initial Lonnie mistake. There's nothing exceptionally wrong about this sequence. I just would have rather seen Lonnie Walker rise up for a 3 off of this screen instead of settling for a mid-range jumper where he's only shooting about 42% for the season. On this play, there's going to be a defensive miscommunication between Patty and Lonnie, and we'll pause it right here. As you can see, Patty's going to get caught up on a Harden screen, which means if the Spurs are switching everything, which they were doing early on in the game, that Lonnie should have gone over and covered Kyrie Irving, but he doesn't, and we'll unpause it. Kyrie gets a wide open 3, drains it, and that's just not good communication between Patty and Lonnie, and hopefully they'll work on that in the film room. Love this baseline rip through from Lonnie to get directly to the rim, but let's pause it. He has DeJounte Murray wide open in the corner for a 3 and instead opts to drop it off to Jakob Poeltl in the paint. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily the wrong decision in this instance, but I think given Jakob's struggles to finish in traffic, the better decision would have been to kick it out to DeJounte. Now, I won't play the rest of this play for you, but here's a spoiler. Jakob gets blocked and the Nets go the other way. And I think Lonnie can continue to improve his feel for the game as long as he continues getting minutes, which he definitely should, even though he's struggling a bit at the moment. On this play, Lonnie botches a relatively easy finger roll at the rim, and becoming a better finisher is integral to taking his game to the next level. One thing I've noticed with Lonnie is it seems he's a better shooter when he has less time to think about it. Here he catches it, rises up immediately, and hits nothing but the bottom of the net, and not overthinking the game could go a long way for him. This is just another example of how Lonnie can improve his playmaking. He receives the ball in the corner and drives hard, and pause. He has DeJounte Murray wide open for an above the break 3, but instead gets a little bit of tunnel vision and, unpause, gets his shot blocked out of bounds by DeAndre Jordan. Following a scramble for the rebound, Lonnie recovers to Kyrie Irving and makes his life difficult, matching him step for step and ultimately forcing him into a tough fadeaway jumper, and that kind of shot is almost impossible to stop from an elite self-creator like Kyrie. And here's an instance of Lonnie punishing a defender for going underneath the screen. He receives this pass from Jakob, takes one rhythm dribble right into his jumper, and nails his second triple of the game, and this was the point where he really started feeling himself and getting hot from the field. Before we roll the tape, I know I've talked a bit about Lonnie's defensive miscues, but I want to give him props because considering he was guarding Harden and Kyrie for the majority of his defensive possessions, he was actually pretty solid. And as we roll the tape, you can see he's going to hound Harden here into settling for a 3-point jumper that bricks off the back of the rim, and DeAndre tries to save it, but it ultimately results in a backcourt violation that all started with Lonnie's defensive effort. This is by far my favorite offensive sequence from Lonnie this season. Just catches the ball and gives Kyrie a bit of a taste of his own medicine, puts him in the spin cycle, beautiful touch on this floater over DeAndre Jordan, and that's maybe his most advanced combination he's put forth in his career. Lonnie grabs a rebound off of the Kyrie miss and then just absolutely unloads this gorgeous bounce pass to DeJounte Murray for a layup, and the degree of difficulty on this pass is so incredibly high. And as you can see in slow motion here, there is no room for error, and I truly think Lonnie Walker has some untapped potential as a distributor, especially in transition. Walker occasionally hints at a deeper bag of moves, including this nifty little sidestep, and he misses, but it's encouraging to see him expanding his offensive repertoire. And this is another instance of Lonnie having poor shot selection, rises into this tough contested mid-range jumper with about 11 seconds left on the shot clock when he really didn't have to. Lonnie usually isn't a gambler, but he whiffs on the steal and then bites on a ball fake in the wrong direction, giving Harden time to compose himself for this three that puts the Nets up by 12 in the fourth quarter. You can really see what I meant when I said Lonnie Walker is at his best as a shooter when he doesn't have time to think, and he lets this one fly and nails a triple that brings the Spurs within single digits. Then a few possessions later, Lonnie comes down and executes this impressive between-the-legs step-back three over DeAndre Jordan that makes sweet string music. At this point, Lonnie's on fire, and he rattles home a movement three with Joe Harris draped all over him, but he might as well not be there because he's in a rhythm reminiscent of his Rockets breakout game from a year ago. Walker shows solid awareness to navigate the screen and stick to Harden, but definitely gets away with the swipe down foul, and he should work on keeping his hands up instead of reaching. Watch as Lonnie reads DeAndre's eyes and body language to pick off this pass, and honestly the Spurs don't force an overtime without his contributions, and this timely three from Patty Mills certainly kept their comeback hopes alive. Even though he doesn't make it, love the patience from Lonnie to let Kyrie go flying by before composing himself for this triple. Another mighty impressive defensive possession from Lonnie on Kyrie here, just sticks to him like glue, and maybe Kyrie's able to lose him with this half spin, but I think DeMar helps a little bit too much, leaving Bruce Brown wide open for a three, which might have been one of the nails in the coffin for the Spurs in overtime. Nothing too crazy from Lonnie here, just shows the maturity and wherewithal to recognize that Bruce Brown has stumbled out of the play, and he kicks it right back to Murray for a trifecta that brings the Spurs within three with 2 minutes left in overtime. Definitely a lose-lose situation for Lonnie once DeJounte Murray decides to help stop this drive, and I'll go ahead and explain why right about here. So with DeJounte diving into the paint to cut off Bruce Brown, Lonnie is faced with the difficult decision of staying home on Joe Harris, one of the NBA's premier sharpshooters, or rotating into the corner to cover Kyrie, who isn't too shabby himself from beyond the arc. But as you can see from the freeze frame, it would be nearly impossible for Bruce Brown to hit Harris from that angle should Lonnie decide to shift over towards Irving. And as we unpause, Lonnie leaves Kyrie unattended, and the 7-time All-Star makes him pay. So overall, pretty good stuff from Lonnie Walker in this game, and he's been pretty solid for a Spurs team that is 18-14 and has overachieved this season. Now, there are some things that he can definitely improve upon. You know, he's averaging 11.3 points per game. Not the greatest efficiency, 40% from the field, about 36% from three. But those things can definitely improve as he kind of builds confidence, builds a groove. And I think the best way for him to do that is to be moved to the second unit. Now, some people may say that's a demotion, that may hurt his confidence. But Lonnie is a guy who needs touches to stay engaged, to be confident. And I think in the first unit, he's really had a tough time coming by that, right? He's playing with guys like DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, sometimes Derek White, LaMarcus Aldridge, guys who run the offense. And it's really forced him to be a third, fourth, fifth option when he's on the floor. And I think it's also important to remember in terms of his performance this season, this is his first full opportunity. His rookie season, he was stuck in the G League. His second season, he was stuck on the bench behind Marco and Bryn. You know, he got some minutes towards the middle part of the season. Then in the bubble, he really got let off that leash. And this season, you know, full throttle Lonnie, we've been able to see him even when he makes mistakes. He's not yanked from games, and he's shown some impressive flashes, in my opinion. Overall, you know, yes, his defensive numbers aren't great. You know, defensive field goal percentage looks bad. His defensive raptor is among the worst in the league, but we need to add context to that. You know, he is, according to Basketball Index, drawn the 28th hardest individual man-to-man assignments this season. And if you look at the NBA matchup data, he has 25% of all of his defensive minutes as a primary defender. guarding all-stars or former all-stars. And you can bump that number up to 30% if you add in 20-point-per-game scores. And so I think he's not a bad defender. I think he's actually an average to above average defender who's just drawn some really tough individual assignments. But that's pretty much all we have for Lonnie's film review today. Thank y'all for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and that notification button if you want to see when the next video is dropping. But until next time, guys, take care and enjoy the All-Star break.